everybody. We are here with Absolute Beginner Ballet, and we're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to give everybody some time to join in, and let's start warming up. Hello. Thank you. He loves to steal the show. Hi, everybody. Hi from Kai. He's purring. Hello, everybody. In about one more minute, we're going to get started. We're going to be talking a lot during this class. We're going to be talking about a lot of technique issues. Hello, Crystal. So even though this is Absolute Beginner Ballet, but I think a lot of what we're going to talk about will benefit anybody. So it's not going to be nearly as rigorous of a class as I usually run, but it's going to be really informative. I think everybody could really gain a lot from it. There's so many things. I feel like a lot of people, whether you grow up dancing or come to it as an adult, I feel like most people end up with a lot of gaps. I know I had a lot of gaps because, like you're a child and you're training and they tell you things and they explain things and, you don't always process them. You're not always like, when you're little, engaged in the class to really like handle all the information you're being given. And then you get older and you start moving at a much more rapid pace. And some of the really super just basic technique issues, it's like, well, you're so far past that, they're not necessarily always revisited. And if you come into it as an adult, then depending on the situation, there's lots of different situations, but it's very common to be kind of thrown into a class where you just start picking up the steps and you don't really know the vocabulary, and you certainly necessarily don't know all the basic elements. If you've been able to join an Absolute Beginner Ballet class that's really taken it step by step, then you're super lucky. But not everybody has had access to that. People come from, lots of different situations. So we're going to start talking today about just as many things as I can think of that I feel like everybody should just know for 100%. So, beginning, very most basic thing is just standing. And standing, like a ballet dancer, should stand. So, that being said, just to stand at our first position takes a lot of things. The first thing we want to think about are our feet. We have 3 points of the foot, and within the ball of the foot, we want to really think of point here, here, and the heel. You can also think about it at the big toe, little toe, and the heel. So when we're standing, we want our weight to be fairly even on those 3 points. Sometimes we want a little bit more weight into the ball of the foot, but we never want the heels completely off the floor. And then you hear a lot of people talk about not having weight into the heels. But we want to be very, very aware of those 3 points. And we want to really make sure we're parallel. And this translates once we start turning out. We're not rolling in and we're not rolling out either. Now, I talk a lot about the fifth metatarsal because what happens a lot is that you get people who they're not really rolling in, but they're not really engaging their fifth metatarsal into the floor. So by engaging the fifth metatarsal into the floor, we also engage the entire back of the leg. And this is sometimes just a little bit neglected. Now, in addition to that, with our weight in the feet, we have our arches here. And when we talk about not rolling forward, you want to think about having like a little marble under just where your foot naturally has that little bit of rise so that you're not rolling in onto that. Yeah. So our arch is nice and lifted. We have our 3 points of the foot placed. Hi, everybody. So 3 points of the foot. Those are 3 points of the foot. When that comes to standing, if you think of 3 points of one foot and 3 points of the other foot. So we're going to start out. Our first position is heels together, toes out. You can go from parallel and take the toes out. And this is your first position. Now, what happens a lot of times, most of us do not naturally have 180 degrees turnout. So when we're standing in first, there's a question of, are our hips more over our heels, or are our hips more over what would be the front of our foot, but where the heels meet? So if this is the center line of our body, we want our hips over the toes. And what I mean is, you hear a lot in ballet class, you know, weight out of the heels, weight out of the heels. And you do want weight out of the heels when you're standing. But I can be standing here going, I'm balancing my weight out of the heels and still have my pelvis be back here. And then you get that little bit of anterior tilt. And so then we're working and nothing's really working correctly with our alignment. So we want to think hips forward so that our toes, where our toes are on the floor. See, if you were 180 degrees turned out, then our hips would just be over our toes and our heels. But if we're not 180 degrees turned out, we still want to think of taking our hips over the line of where our toes are, not the line of where our heels are. Hopefully that reasonably makes sense. So you're going to hear me say a lot of times, hips forward. Our abdominals, this is another thing. So sometimes you'll hear a teacher say belly button to spine or abdominals lifted. There's a lot of different ways that teachers say it. Sometimes they just say suck your stomach in. And the problem with that is it's effective, but it's easy to go, you know, that's what my son does all the time. Stomach, he's like, ribs lifted, ribs out. And so it's not that. We don't want our rib cage affected by that. All we want to make sure of is that one thing I heard recently that really worked for me is short stomach. So you want to think of connecting the hips to the rib cage and kind of sewing that together. Just true. So that we're not open. And again, that goes into both opening the rib cage and tilting the pelvis. We want our hips to be neutral. So we don't want them tilting this way. We don't want an anterior tilt. We also don't want a tuck. We can really overdo it, trying to really lift that up and tuck, and that's not good either. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm catching everybody. So 3 points of the foot, neutral pelvis, short stomach. When we're engaging the glutes, it's not that we ever want to take our glutes and just like grip them. And really what we want to be working more than the large glutes, our main glutes, are the under butt muscles, which are also our deep rotators. Now these can be very difficult to find. Very difficult to feel. There are some exercises, some of the exercises I've done in conditioning, like the butterfly bridge, going from butterfly to bridge, can help find those. There are other ones, but we want to make sure that we're really engaging from underneath. So it's this lifted thing, and that should go right with engaging the lower abdominals. We want to really make sure we're pulling our knees up, so it's easy to kind of relax knees just a little. I'm really, really bad about this. instead of really, really pulling and lifting. This also is a little bit tricky because if you do have hyperextended legs, then you don't want to be pulling back into your hyperextension, but it's actually the muscles on the front of the knee that you want to think about really engaging, lifting up, so that even if your knees are hyperextended, you're pulling them, but it's not that from the back of the knee that you're pushing back to where we're it's like the difference with my arm. If I have really super hyperextended arms, there's my hyperextended arm, but I can go pull these muscles and straighten my arm without getting into the hyperextension. And that's what we want to do with our knees. But we're not going to get the beautiful tendu lines if we're not really pulling those muscles and engaging them. The rib cage has to stay really relaxed. So we don't want to be opening the rib cage. This is a little bit more difficult because we want our shoulders lifted up and back. And then again, one of the biggest things, I actually see this in a lot of dancers, and this is a deal with like technology and being on the computer and being on the phones, where we're kind of like this a lot, that trying to reach up and back and lengthen this line and pull the shoulders back, it's really, really difficult because our bodies, when when we're sitting a lot and we're here, then all of a sudden we're trying to lift, that can just get really tight. So working on just our strengthening of our back, pushing hands in, strengthening our shoulder blades will help open that up. But we want to make sure, again, when we open the shoulders, we're not opening the rib cage. The rib cage stays closed and relaxed, and the shoulders are open and down and back. So all that being said, that's just some, and that's still not everything. I can always find one more thing to talk about. But that's the basics of just how to stand. We want to stand on the 3 points of the foot. When we turn out, we want to make sure our hips are forward. Our torso also needs to be forward. Ballet was created on what you call a rape stage. So there was a slight, it went from the back of the stage sloping to the front of the stage. And there are stages in Europe that are still raped. So if you think about the fact that if you were standing on a slope and you would always be kind of about to fall forward, but you'd be turning out, holding the backs of your legs to hold everything together, like that's what we kind of want to be trying to think of and create. So it's the backs of our legs doing almost all the work. So our first combination, I'm gonna go ahead and raise this up a little bit now. Make sure you can see all of me. We're gonna face our bar. And we're going to start in parallel. Our ankles are together. Now, right here, right now, even though we're in parallel, we want to be engaging the legs as if we're ready to turn out. So these under butt muscles, the inner thighs, all of that's already wrapping. And you want to think of these opposing forces wrapping from both sides of both legs. Now, at all times in ballet, we have to be really, really careful that we're engaging both sides relatively evenly. It's very easy sometimes that we're working on one leg and our standing leg goes, or working our standing leg and the other leg goes. I mean, this is the battle that all of us face, always, the rest of our dancing lives. It's not like it's ever just fixed. Maybe there are some pros that are just dancing so much it becomes second nature for them. For most of us, we still have to continue to think about it and work on it. So we're wrapping. Now, for today, we're going to start with arms around and we're going to take our bar. I want our elbows almost or all the way pressing into our sides. This should help you relax the rib cage and keep the shoulders down and back. So we're not here, but we're pressing the elbows into our sides, and we want to be able to kind of open and close arms like that. We're going to push this foot up to the demi-point. So the heel's coming up, pushing up to the toe, half down and close, other foot, half, and up, and half, heel down. Again, half, up, half, close, half, up, half, down. Now with both feet, we're going to relevé. So we're rising, and we're gonna hold 1, 2, and we're keeping everything in alignment. 3, lower down. We're not dropping our heels. We want it to be with resistance. It's as if we have a hard-boiled egg that we're trying to push slowly into the sand, and we don't want to make it break. Up, hold, hold, push the hard-boiled egg slowly into the sand. And again, up, hold, hold, slowly into the sand. And again, up, hold, hold. That short stomach, slowly down. Now we're going to turn out to first. Again, we want to think hips forward, so our hips are in line. We have lines drawn on the floor between our toes. We want our hips over that line, not back into our heels. So we take the same thing, half, point, make sure we're not sickling like this. We're going to talk about feet in a minute too. Half and down, and half, up, half, down. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we rise. Pull the knees. 2, shoulders down and back, rib cage relaxed, short stomach. 3. Again, slowly down, but when we're in first, now we're turning out. We want to imagine it's as if we have a ball and we go up, and now we're trying to squeeze the ball, okay? So it's not just, this is where it gets different than if we're like at a gym just doing kind of calf raises. You want that resistance. The body's lifting up. As we squeeze down, we want to be pushing those heels together. 4 of those. Up, 2, 3, down, 4. Up, 2, 3, down, 4. And we're just going to finish there. So starting parallel, wrap, half up, half down, right, left, rise, lower down. Same thing in first. And just so you can see the spelling, this is how we spell relevé. Now, you will need to note, relevé means raised. So obviously we're raising. There's another term where you take the R off and you say élevé. Now in French, what you will hear from some people is that élevé means more like to raise, like to breed, like to breed an animal. So there are some people who never really use the word élevé because it's a little bit different meaning. But there are some people who will say relevé means you go from plié to your rise, and then your élevé is a rise with no plié. We're going to get to pliés in a minute. So just be aware that those are differentiations. Usually I just say relevé for all of it, and I just say relevé with plié or without plié, which is plenty acceptable. Other people say élevé and relevé. So just know if you hear a teacher say élevé, that means you rise with no plié. And if a teacher uses élevé, they will usually say relevé only for plié and up. And then put our music on. Be ready with your chair or counter or your bar. I'm running over to my bar. Elbows in. We have half, point, half, down, half, point, half, down. Again, half, point, half, down, half, point, half, down. Now we rise. Up, hold, hold, resist. Up, press in my body. Hold, resist. Keep the elbows in. Up, hands relaxed. Short stomach, knees pull. Slow. Up. And first, we have half. And make sure we're turning out the standing leg. We're going to touch it down. Standing leg. Hold. Forward the line of toes. Half. Point. Half. Down. Rise. Pull. Hips forward. Down. Up. Hold. Resist and squeeze. Lifting up through the body. Up. We're pushing against the floor, pushing down when we rise. Lift. Push. Hold. Hold. Lift. Finish. Shoulders back. Short stomach. Hips forward. Good. All right. Our next exercise are going to be, yes, Relevé. Yeah, a lot of teachers do. And you know, I mean, it's a little bit, it's just different people kind of do different things. Totally acceptable. A lot of people really like having a differentiation between no plie and plie. And so Relevé gives them that, and which is really nice to have. And sometimes I will do it just because then you do have that differentiation, especially if it's already something that the school where I'm teaching, if they say that, then I just go ahead and use that terminology with them. All right, Demi-plié. This is gonna be our next step. So this is a half bending of the knees and the knees open to the side. So the heels always stay on the ground in any demi-plié ever. So starting in first, this is gonna get us into all our positions. So we have first position. Here's another one. This is a difference in styles. When we go to second, some schools really want you to tendu, lower, and place. I'm really a big believer in this. Some schools like for you to take a larger second. Sometimes with my adult beginners, I like to take a larger second just because it is a little bit, it feels better on the hips. It's harder to have a smaller second. You have to have more lengthened Achilles, and it's a little bit more, just say strain on the hips, but it pushes your turnout more. If you take this a little larger, then you can access your turnout a little more easily. So that's helpful. For me, for my purposes, I will leave it up to you and your teacher or to your personal preference. So we have first and second. Now today, I'm gonna have us working from third. Third is where we cross about halfway. This is a very helpful position for, again, accessing the turnout and utilizing a little bit more turnout from the hips. When we fully cross, that is fifth. Fifth position can, in different schools, close to the bone to halfway across the toe, all the way to the toe. Usually if you are in a professional school, they're going to want you to have a fully crossed fifth. Training and other methodologies, they will allow a little bit more open because that does help you access the turnout a little bit more, especially if you're somebody who doesn't just naturally have 180 degrees. So first, second, we're not going to work from fourth today, but fourth crosses in front. Now again, fourth can be open from the first, the third, or the fifth. So again, depending on how much turnout you have, what you're doing, usually my fourth is like a third that's open, but I'm trying to push myself into more of that fifth. It's just very, very difficult. And sometimes just as an adult, it is just more strain on the hips and the knees and different things. So if I wake up, my body is kind of like not feeling the greatest. Sometimes I even work from a very, very open fourth just because that feels better on the muscles. But for what is academically correct, what a lot of people are going to want to see is going to be a fully crossed fourth. And then we have our fifth position, which is, we talked about that, fully crossed. We have first, second, third, fourth, fifth. For our purposes right now, we're only going to work in first, second, third with the right foot in front, third with the left foot in front. Before we do that, let's talk about turnout one little bit, because this is another really big issue for everybody. Our hip joint is a ball and socket joint. So you've got something right here, the leg bone fits into it, it can rotate, it can move. That's how we can do all this kind of stuff as well as this kind of stuff. We have lots of room for our legs from the hip to open. Our knees are primarily hinge joints. They have that little bit of circular motion, but not much. And we really don't want to ask our knees to do that much. We really want to ask our knees to do much more of this than for standing and working. We don't want them to do much where they have to circle. Our ankles, again, they have the hinging. That's why we do a lot of flex and point. They work very well that way. But they also have a lot of circular motion in them. So when we're looking at our turnout, we want most of it, at least 60% of it, to come from the hips. Then we can ask the ankles to do, more like 30%. And the knees, we only want about 10%. We want very, very little of the knees. And different people have a little bit different percentages of each one. But one thing I see sometimes is people, they might have great rotation from the hip, and then they're not utilizing their ankles. So they end up with this, little bitty first, mostly because they're not using their ankles. And you can see this because it depends on when you plie, how much do the knees go side. And if there's a lot of rotation, if the knees will pretty well go straight side when you plie, then you have pretty good rotation from the hips. My rotation from the hips is not great. I really have to push and fight for those knees to go straight side. They really don't go straight side. So I have to be very careful with my knees, but I can utilize my ankles to make it appear that I have a little bit more rotation, especially when I'm like closing into first. Makes me appear that I have more turnout than I have. So plie is a verb. It means to bend, but we want to be really careful that we bend our knees and we don't go, okay, I'm in plie now. Because this is not plie. Plie is the entire action of going, bend the knees and stretch. It's the whole thing. Now again, if we were to take our ball that we're squeezing, it's as if we're pushing something out, then as we come up, we're pushing something to close. So we want a lot of resistance. We want a lot of work with our plies, and we want most of that work to come from the back of the legs, as well as the inner thighs. What we don't want is, so one more thing, tailbone, all right, our shoulders and our hips make a square. And a lot of people will talk about that, your square. When you're doing a plie, this is your elevator. You don't want it to go like this. If you were in an elevator and it started going like that, you'd be really afraid. So you want it to go straight up and straight down. And the same way when we go side, most of the time, we're gonna have sometimes where things bend, but we want to be able to go straight side, down and up, and all this stuff with our elevator. My little bitty students, they say it's just like we're a piece of bread in a toaster and we're gonna burn our front or our back if we bend. So that's another way to think of it. We wanna go straight down, straight up. We want a lot of resistance. We want to realize that the entire plie is the work, the entire, right? At the beginning, we're pushing the knees together. We're pushing the knees out. We're pushing the knees together again. That's all a lot of work. So for this combination, we're going to take just demi-pliés. Our heels will always be on the floor. And take our preparation, 5, 6, 7, 8 elbows into our sides and hips forward over the line of the toes. We're going 1, 2, up, 3, 4. Now you want to get as deep as you can without the heels coming up. So if you can go deeper with the knees over the toes, the hips straight, the heels on the floor, you may have more stretchy Achilles than me. You may have more turnout than me. You may be able to access more than me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want as much as you can have. So 3 demi-pliés in first. Then we're going to tendu, hold, place into our second. So I'm kind of going a little bit in between. I might be going a little bit bigger, but not much. If you want to go a little bit wider, you can. I like working here because we do work our Achilles more in a smaller second. So 1, 2, up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fully straight knees. 1, 2, push, push, hold, 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 close, back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here, because we're in third, we want to think about our calf muscles not touching and our knees going directly side. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shoulders down and back, short stomach, short cage, relax. Fully stretch knees, fully pointed toe, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're just going to end there. So starting in our first position, both knees or both hips wrapping, under butt muscles engaged, knees stretched, short stomachs, rib cage relaxed, shoulders back. All those things working. I'm going to have to sign into this computer every time because I'm taking so long to talk. First position. Elbows in. Now take it slow. Push the knees out and up. 5, 6, up, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Slight engage. Fit the torso down. Place. Lifting up in the body. Up. So keep those heels down. Fit the torso with the back of the legs. 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is our third. And push those knees out. And go. We want to make a diamond with the knees. And up. Down. Fully stretch. Right leg, tendu. Hold, lift. And down. 2. And up. Fully stretch knees. And finish. Good, excellent work. All right, our next order of business. Now, our pliés will progress over time into our grand plie, which goes lower down. Many of you have probably already had that, but the heels in every position but second come off the floor for that. The spelling's almost the same, just grand instead of demi. So next, we're gonna do our battement tendu, or just tendu, which means stretched. And the working foot slides out to a fully pointed position, front side or back, and then returns to the original position. One thing we want to talk about with this is the shaping of the foot, because I was even just seeing a discussion about this the other day. Somebody said, I'm sickling in my tendus. So if we were to come down to the floor, with our ankles together, if our ankles are together and we push all our toes together, they're kind of straight. They're not sickled. Sickled would be if your ankles were apart and your toes came in. That's a sickled foot. And it's very easy to do this on a somewhat less exaggerated scale, just to get like a little bit of sickles like that. And even sometimes, like this line where the ankles together or the toes are straight, it's almost like it almost looks sickled. It's so straight. So what we want, there are people who go and do these really extreme things called winged feet. Sometimes it can look really super gorgeous. It's not necessarily good for us. But what we can do is, with our ankles together, we just slightly work on separating the toes. So we're not damaging our ankles. We're not doing anything crazy. We're just slightly working on separating the toes while the ankles are together. Just that little bit. And that's the line we want for our tendus. Not anything, we're like, nah, I can't even do it anymore. There's a time in my life when I could super wing my feet, and not anymore. But that's what we want ideally for our tendu, is just, again, it's that flexibility through the ankle to just work the ankle that little bitty bit that gives us a nice line. So going from first, this is going to be very, very basic. We're going to build on what we did last combination. So we're going to have one plie. We're going to take 3 tendu devant to the front. Devant means to the front. 1, close, 2. This is where this action of the ankle comes in. And for tendus, we want to imagine that we are pushing something away from us. So if we have this yoga block, it has to be something in a straight line like this. It can't just be anything. So I'm pushing the yoga block. So I'm pushing my whole foot, really more leading with the heel until the toes can extend. Then coming back, I'm going to bring the toes back until I can push the yoga block back. So we want the heel to lead, the toes to come back. And what we see sometimes that we want to avoid is I'm just kind of taking the foot out and returning it without utilizing that action of the ankle at all, or without really thinking of leading with the heel and bringing the toes back. So 3 times we're going to take heel, lead. Now don't forget about your supporting side. You're still pushing that 5th metatarsal and your pinky toe into the floor. Toes back. Make sure that 5th metatarsal is down. We don't want to come to this place. Toes, heel out, toes back, heel out, toes back. We're going to take 1 plie that's going to be a little bit faster than we just did. 7, 8. To the side is the same thing, that we want to pretend like we have some resistance here. We're pushing something out, push out, and then if we were pulling something back in, zoom. So we always want that push, pull. 3, 4, 5, 6, plie, and now to the back, we're reversing what we said to the front. So to the front, it was heel lead, toes back. Now it's toes lead, heel in, so that when we get to this tendu, we're hiding the heel, we're not here. We don't want to show off that heel. Nobody wants to see it. So we're going high at the heel, bring the heel in, toes out, heel in, toes out, heel in, plie, up, just same thing side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also, as we take our tendu, we always want to think that we're getting to this place where our foot's fully stretched except for the toes, and then the toes point, and then we relax the toes again, down. And we'll do a little bit more of that next combination. We're going to do one more tendu after that, after this, and we'll emphasize the half point, half in, but just think about that this time, that you want to point and back, and point through the foot, back. So 3 tendus, 1 demi-plié, and that's a combination. Alrighty, so this stuff starts getting more and more complicated, but the more you become comfortable with the vocabulary, then the quicker we can start to pick up more complicated combinations. All right, so starting first, make sure we're ready to put those elbows into our sides. Not everybody does that. That's kind of, some people do the elbows into the sides, but I'm a little bit more unique in doing that. Your typical teacher might not ask you to do that. So do it for me, even if it's not your norm. And we have heel lead, toes back, heel lead, toes back, heel lead, toes back, plie, and stretch, and push, resist, and push, resist, and push, resist, plie. Now straight behind you, that's the other thing. Make sure toes, heel in, toes out, heel in, plie, push, one more time, side, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plie, left, we have heel lead, toes back, heel lead, toes back, heel lead, toes back, lift, push, toes, resist, push, resist, plie. This leg's perfect. Down. Toes, heel, and push, resist. Good. So one more tendu, starting from third this time. So this is going to be a little bit different. Third position. We're going to go half, point, half, back, tendu, close. And you still want to have that action. Tendu, close. Half, point, half. This is going to close back. Tendu, close front. Tendu, close back. Half, point, half, in. Tendu and close. Tendu and close. Now, let's just do 2. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, close front, 1, close back, hold, so we can start left to the front. So one more thing to be thinking about. When we take these tendus and we go front, side, back. Again, different schools do it differently. My method of teaching is that the toe goes in front of the heel to the front. So some places want you to cross it a little bit more. I don't know that anybody wants you to cross it less, but I like toe across from heel to the front, and the same thing, toe across from heel in the back. The back is where you really have to watch not to let it kind of go out here. It's just very easy to do. You have to think connecting this heel to this opposite shoulder behind me and lifting up, and that you almost have in these 2 legs that tension as if you have resistance there. Again, it's back to this thing. Tension, tension, tension. You're always engaging and squeezing. And then side, my general rule of thumb, talking about when we have less than 180 degrees turnout. If we were just 180 degrees turned out, then we would go straight out. You would say toe across from heel. But knowing that most of us have a little less, I usually say toe across from toe. And we're just talking about shaping the foot. We want to shape the heel forward. We're going to use these muscles to wrap the leg around from the top of the hip, rotate, work the heel forward, and you want those toes just a little bit pulled back, just a little, heel forward. So what we don't want is just to kind of be like, oh, I've got toe across from toe, but my heel's a little bit back. You really want the heel forward. So the two heels are still connected, meeting each other. The toes are across from toes. But you're gonna be able to get more rotation if you take the leg very slightly front so that the toes are across from toe, and then you can rotate this leg. But do not forget about the rotation of your supporting leg. In fact, some people will tell you to think about the rotation of the supporting leg. Let what happens with this leg happen. And once you've gotten really strong in this rotation, then you can work more on the rotation here. And I've actually found for myself recently that's been really effective, because if you aren't standing on a strong supporting leg, what this leg is doing is kind of irrelevant. You can have it amazing, but if you're not standing on a good supporting leg, then you're going to have a lot of imbalances in the body. You're not really going to be working as correctly as we want. So we still have to do the combination, right? From third to the same, and this is the other thing that I'm really huge on in my classes. I give basics at the wazoo, I give basic combinations, because I'm like, I want consistency. When you tendu to the front, I want you to go to the same place on the floor every single time. If I had tape for the foot you're standing on, and tape where you should be here, 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 and there again, should be the same place every single time. And that's not a bad thing to do for yourself, is to go, okay, if I put tape down, where do I need to be? So that, you know, you can make it should be the exact same pathway. Half, point, half, and we're in the same place. Same place. And this is going to be even more critical as we start rotating the leg later. Tendus do not come off the floor. The toes do not come off the floor, so we don't want to throw this leg out there and bring it back. We're pushing the floor away. It's almost as if we're trying to go underneath the floor. And then especially here, what we don't want to do is keep the toes flexed to come back. If anything, you can maybe slightly almost like dome the foot, but even that, you really just want to relax the toes, bring them back, relax the foot in, use the ankle flexibility. That's really all we need. Yeah? All right. Keep talking to me, people, because I'm assuming everybody's still here. Starting in third. If you're used to starting in fifth, feel free to do it from fifth, but I just really like working in third as well. And half, point, toes back, close, point, and back. So through those toes. Now the exact same place. 1, 2, down. Take the supporting leg. Right behind you, toe behind the heel. Just 2, we still have the 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, just 1. Hold. And point, half, toes back. Toes back. Toes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Change, hold. Left, last time. 1, 2, 3, toes back. Heel forward, toes back. Heel forward, toes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Change. Finish. Feel the big torso pressing down. Arches lifted. Short stance. Relaxed rib cage. Shoulders down back. We also want chins lifted. Good. Very good work. Okay. Now we're moving on to dégagé. Battement dégagé just means disengaged. So stretched. You also have jeté, which is almost the same step, which means stretched and thrown. So this is going to be like a tendu that comes off the floor, but you want a little more an action of a throw to it, but it's not very high. Dégagé is going to go about 4 inches off the floor. Jeté is a little bit higher. They can be smaller if they are fast. You'll see dégagés begin to get very, very fast. And my rule of thumb for my students is as the movement gets faster, or as the music gets faster, we make the movement smaller. So we don't want it to get frantic. And sometimes if we're trying to keep the same height, we can start to look really frantic because we can't make it fit. This is going to be nice and slow. And we're going to go from first. So we're going to think about all that alignment, rotation, under butt, knees lifted, hips neutral, rib cage relaxed, shoulders up, chin lifted. And we're going to start with our same tendu. We're going to go tendu, lift, and tendu, close. I'm trying to go that same place. Out, close, and this is sharper. Out, close. So you really want to think arrive, and arriving at the same place in the air. So now, instead of being on the floor, we want to imagine we have little places in the air. We're trying to go to the same place every time. Tendu, lift, tendu, close, dégagé, dégagé, and tendu, lift, tendu, close, dégagé, dégagé. We're going to go plié, relevé, plié, relevé, plié, relevé, plié, stretch. Starting left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So it should not be too fast, but we want sharpness. This is another thing. Usually it's more when I get to another step later in the bar. But when we start getting things that are sharp, I tell my students, we want it to be like we're having crispy bacon. So don't make your movement be chewy bacon. Make it be crispy bacon. So really crisp movement. Okay? Ready? I think this is what we want. And lift. And arrive. Arrive. And tendu, lift. Out. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get ready for our relevé. Clear. Up. Clear. Up. Clear. Up. Clear. Stretch left leg. 2, All right, so we are moving on to rond de jambe, and this is à terre. We would also have en l'air, which would mean off the floor. So rond de jambe, rond de jambe. And honestly, people, I'm from Alabama originally. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of these terms if you heard it from me versus a French speaker, which is another reason why I'm kind of a lot more relaxed about terminology, because not only does everybody have something that's a little bit different, but I'm never going to sound like a French speaker. So, everybody has their own, way of going about things, and that's okay. It gives me a lot more appreciation for, the times that I get to go take from someone who is a native French speaker and really soak in the authenticity of it, but it's very, very different. So, rond de jambe, we're going to do demi rond de jambe and full rond de jambe. So you'll see what I mean. So the first time, this is where finding those consistent places on the floor is really important, because now rond de jambe is a circling of the leg. I'm talking about that ball and socket joint. We don't want our hips moving. Our hips do not have to move. Our hips should not be hula hooping in our rond de jambes. So the ball and socket joint, so the hip is here, the leg is moving within the hip is not involved. Doesn't need to be. So we're starting front, carry side, and hold, and close. And front, carry side, and hold, and close. Now we're going to go front, and hold, and side, and hold, and back, and hold, and close, and hold. That was en dehors. En dehors means out the door. It means front to back or outside. Now we're going to go en dedans, which is inside, which for this is back to front. So we're going 1 and 2 and 3, close 4, 5, 6, hold 7, close 8, and 1, hold 2 and 3, hold 4 and 5, hold 6, and first, hold 8. Very, very important that as we pass through first, and this is another thing about not engaging the hips, we really want to just stand in first. We don't want to get into a thing where we start going, where we kind of pass through first, but we don't really find first. So when we start doing these faster, we still really need to utilize that first position. So starting from the left, we're going to have 1 carry side, 2, hold 3. This is to lift and stretch. 3, close 4, heel forward, 6, hold 7, 8. Now we're going to go 1, hold 2, 3, hold 4, 5, hold 6, find first, 7, we're standing on 2 feet, 8. Now notice when I shift to one leg, my center line of balance goes slightly to that leg. So my belly button and my nose, they're in between my heels. They're going to the middle of my foot. And again, that's how we don't sink back into our hips. And talking about being over the ball of the foot, we have a center, an imaginary line down the center of our body. And our center has to be able to kind of shift where we're going. If we're in fifth, it's already there. It's already over the middle of our supporting foot. If we're in first, we're going to one leg. We have to take that shift just a little bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think that's all we're going to do for right now. I saw some comments come in, so let me just double check. Yes, making circles with the legs from the hips. Yep, no, that's exactly right. All right, ready for rond de jambe. 1, carry side 2, hold, lift, and close. Heel, knee, carry side, now lift, close. 1, hold, 2, stay like 3, hold 4, 5, hold 6, touch 4, first, hold, back, side, hold, lift, through the foot, close, back, heel, knees, hold, close, 1, hold, 2, 3, 4, knees, 6, first, 2 feet, and left, 1, 2, close, knees, carry, lift, and wing up 1, 2, side, back, squeeze, close, 1, 2 feet, close, carry, hold, squeeze, back, side, stretch, lift, close, 1, hold, 2, lift, 3, lift and stretch, lift and stretch, close, hips in line with the toes, not with the heels. Good, excellent. All right. Oh, I'm gonna go here. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna do a little introduction to frappé. This is a much more complicated movement. I have a video as part of our well-trained dancer series that I need to expand on a lot, but I have a frappé video that explains a lot of different things about frappé. We're gonna just do this side for today, and we're gonna do it in a little bit different way. Again, this is different from how you're gonna see most people teach frappé, but I find it really, really, really effective. So first of all, understand that we have this position called coup de pied. The verb of coup de pied is to cut, and it's called coupe. So occasionally you hear people also call this position coupe. So coupe, coup de pied, and then some people will also, they have a difference between, I think, like they call when it's not wrapped sur le coup de pied, and when it's wrapped they call it coupe. I'm not 100% sure, but you can have sur le coup de pied, not wrapped, or wrapped. I'm a big fan of wrapped because I believe in how it helps us shape the foot and work the muscles, but it's not what we usually use for frappé. Frappé means to strike, like we're striking a match, or like we're a snake striking our prey. So you have to make these really sharp, because if you're a snake and you don't strike and you're not sharp, you're not gonna have dinner. And we want to have dinner. Or if we're lighting a match, you don't want to stand there doing a slow strike and not ever lighting your match. Frappé, sometimes you see it not striking the floor. I was trained to strike the floor. This is a little bit more chiquetti, but it can be done both ways. Teachers are going to do it both ways. The one studio where I'm dancing right now, there's no striking the floor. And then, other places do. Totally correct both ways. This is very rarely about there being a correct versus an incorrect. It's more just a style versus a style. So that's why it's very important not to get too up in arms about terminology or how steps are done. I'm trying to introduce a little bit of everything. But this method is specifically for striking, because I feel like when we strike the floor, it's misunderstood, misinterpreted a little bit. It's a little bit tricky to learn. So our sur le coup de pied position, is our toes touching, right around this little ankle bone. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put our heel there and we're going to put our toes on the floor. So starting from third, our preparation is going to be Tendu, relax the toes, bring the heel right to that little bone, yeah? And just to the side for right now, we're going to go out 1, bring it in 2, out 3, bring it in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What I like about doing this, usually when you teach from a flex foot and you strike, you are flexing the foot like this, and then you basically have to go to this position that I'm giving you and strike. Some people might take it more to there, but you're going through the foot and striking. This is a very useful thing because it really strengthens the toe, but you have to really push through the ball of the foot and utilize the ball of the foot and find that position from here to here of really working the toes. And if we miss that, we're missing the biggest utilization of what this step has to offer, because it's a strength building thing, especially for females. We get into our point work later. That action is essential in point. It's also essential in our allegro later on. There's lots of that. So hugely useful step. But how we work the toes is vital to really making it the best it can be for us. So again, we're going to go 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're not changing. 7, 8. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close that. 6. Tendu. 7, 8. And we're just striking along the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope. 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 2 counts of 8. 7 frappés, utilizing 2 counts of 8. Now you can see when I do that, this is why I like to go from the toes touching the ground. Because remember how I was talking about this being a hinge joint? If we're going side, that's all we want to worry about right now. So we really don't want this part of the leg moving very much at all. Uh-oh. So we're going out, in, and we're just working through the knee, but also through the toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to go right, left, right, left. So just working that action. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of different styles that I am familiar with, that I try to incorporate a mix of things as much as I can. But I mean, I still have what my training was based in. So I have things that I'm like, that's how I was trained. I didn't really know what it was at the time. I just did it. And it's so hard to keep up with what everything is. All right, so I'm actually going to start the music on the other song so that I can get to the bar, get our preparation. So it's starting in third. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bench. Okay. All right, for the next couple of combinations, and we're already at 1:11:11, an hour and 11 minutes and 11 seconds. So we're not going to go too much longer. I want to give us two more combinations at the bar. And you realize you're at home, so I don't know if you're dancing with a chair or a counter. This is ideal with a counter. What I like is for everybody to put backs to your bar. So if you have a bar, that's great. What we want to be careful about with our counter is, again, we don't want to open the rib cage. So we still want that idea of like the elbows into our sides. And let's just go from first right now. We're gonna just be lifting the leg. We're gonna go 1, lift, 2, and 3, and 4. This does not have to be high. If your square cannot stay square, then you only lift the leg as high as you can lift it and keep your square square. If your hip has to go like this, then don't take it that high. It should only be as high as this. Now, one thing is we almost want to think of this hip almost as if it's pulling back as we disengage. So we're really engaging from underneath to lift the leg. So you don't want, again, that heel like this. We worked really hard on heel forward, toes back. It's the same thing here. If it were flexed, we want to try and keep a flat foot as if we could put a cupcake or a cup of tea on our leg. So 1, 2, down, 3, 4, side, 6, 7, 8, left, 1, 2, and this is really slow music, so this is going to be slow. 3, 4, I may even double time it. 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, do not take the hips up to the side, so it may not be that high. I'm not going to take it that high when we actually do the combination. We're repeating that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we're going to come to parallel. We're going to bring the arms off. What I'd like for you to do is have arms here. You could also put them on the hips. And parallel, we're going to go like a parallel sort of compete up to a parallel retire, back down and close. And we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just try to keep everything in line. Try to think about the knees, the underbutt, the abdominals, the rib cage, the shoulders back. So many things at play. And then trying to release that onto one foot, which is much more difficult than it sounds like it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so just front, side, right, left, and then up and down and up and down, right and left. Okay, slow, slow, slow. This is all slow and controlled. Really working all our muscles. Good. All right, everybody. All right, now we're gonna go into our grand battement. All right, so there's how we write frappé, battement frappé. I want everybody to be able to kind of see the spelling for a lot of these things as well. Here is our grand battement. So grand battement is bigger. It's grand, big. And what we want with this action is we want a throwing quality on the way up and a controlled quality on the way down. So sometimes I see dancers that they really try and like control up and control down, and then it's not really what we want. We want freedom on the way up. Free, but then we don't want to like collapse either. So we're gonna do, I want to keep this. If you're working with a chair, I should have said that for the last combination. If you're working with a chair, you're gonna wanna have one hand on the bar probably. And if you're doing that, you can put one arm across or on the shoulder so that we're keeping the square. So if you have to have one hand on your chair, that's what we wanna do. This is actually really good, I feel like it's even better than this for helping us hold our square. Not letting, because then it just keeps everything kind of condensed. Whereas this, we can get a little chicken army with it, which can then make us collapse. So back to your bar or countertop or whatever you have. If you have it, if you only have a chair, you're probably gonna wanna do one arm. So we're gonna go tendu. Now this is still a throw. Throw, control, and close. Now we're going to take out that first tendu and we're going to go up, control, down. Up, control, down. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6, 7, and an 8. Again, don't take the leg higher than you can keep the hips. So don't take the leg high if it means doing that. Don't take the leg high if it means doing that. Only where the hips go. And remember that ball and socket. We want to try and release and release. Don't involve the hip. The hip doesn't need to do anything. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6, 7, and an 8. Oh my gosh, 2. BC's a bug or what? 3, 4, 5, and a 6, 7, and an 8. And again, we don't want to open the rib cage. That's the one bad thing about putting hands behind us. We want the shoulders back, but we don't want the rib cage to open or the back to arch. And we want to try and keep those elbows into as much as we can without involving this. It should be nice and easy. One thing about ballet is I made this mistake for a long time because I would always be like, I'm working really, really hard. We want to work really hard, but we have to work smart more than we're working hard. Most of this shouldn't be, there shouldn't be tension in the body. It should feel very light, very easy. So if you feel yourself getting like, oh, I'm working so hard, you may want to take a step back and go, how can I kind of relax, especially through the neck and the upper body, and just work the legs. That's why I take arms out of the mix a lot of times if I feel like it's making me too like, just from first, so starting in first. All right, so let's take a stretch. So we're going to take our bars away. Assuming you have a bar or a chair. We're going to do a little bit different kind of stretch. We're going to start parallel. Now, we're going to roll down. So you want to think about like dropping the head and looking at the belly button. And we're just going to roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do that twice. Then let's come down. We're going to put one leg out in front, this knee bent, and we're going to go push back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're working towards your splits, you can do splits or you can repeat that for 8. So if you have splits, we're going to go splits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or if you're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or just keep alternating back and forth. I just do straight, straight. So you're just thinking about alternating which leg is straight. Then we will switch and we'll do the other one like that. So straighten one, straight in the back, straight in the front, straight in the back. 5, 6, 7, 8. Into your splits if you have it, or you're here. I like putting both hands one on either side, and then you just work where you are. And then we'll finish. So 2 roll downs and then into our splits. I'm gonna try and get a little bit more in the center. And it's just starting up. And back up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Again. Do your belly. And we are at almost an hour and a half, so I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Let me know what you thought of this, if you like more of this type of thing. Like I said, this is really meant to be absolute beginner. There's so many things I think of that I'm like, I see issues in more advanced dancers, and I always want to like go back and correct it. Sometimes we have time, sometimes we don't. So I hope this was informative for you and helpful. And tomorrow morning, we're going to do a point strengthening through basics at 11:45 Central. It'll be live, it'll be here. It's a great thing to do if you're on point. It's amazing to do if you're not on point and you just want to work demi-point, because it's going to be kind of more like my 8 on quad challenge that we're going to try and go through combos quickly and just work strength. It's not an advanced class in the sense that you need to know a lot of steps advanced, but it is rather advanced point work, um, just in terms of the strength. So if you're not 100% secure in your point work or your floor or anything like that, just do it on flat. It's amazing pre-point prep. Um, so I hope all of you are doing well and enjoyed this. Also, let me know if the sound and the music was better. I had a little bit different setup today, trying to improve the quality. So let me know how that was. All right, we'll see you later, everybody. 11:45 Central. And we didn't get to fondues today. I'm just seeing that comment. So yeah, we didn't get to fondues today. Um, but we'll try. I know we have an intermediate class coming up. Um, I think next week is intermediate. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look at the calendar. We'll definitely do in the intermediate class. It's gonna be basic combinations, but we'll do the full range of almost everything at the bar. Today we're a little bit limited on time, and there's a lot of things about fondue that I could spend time on to introduce for absolute beginner. So we'll try and maybe do another absolute beginner sometime and include that. Thank you, everybody.